The stars hum tonight. Their light drifts through the thin skin of the multiverse like whispered music. Soft, endless, and slightly sad. You can almost hear it when you close your eyes. The slow breathing of infinity. Pause. Somewhere, beyond 1,000 versions of the same sunset, a ship moves through the dark. Its engines glow with the tired blue of half-remembered dreams. Inside, a man leans back in his seat, eyes half closed, surrounded by the smell of old circuitry and ozone. A bottle rolls gently underfoot. A portal gun hums beside him, its chamber ticking like a heartbeat. This is Rick Sanchez. Though not the Rick, not anymore. Perhaps just one of the many reflections of a single idea, the dream of genius lost in its own labyrinth. Morty sleeps in the passenger seat, curled in a blanket that smells faintly of home. They've been traveling too long, through too many versions of what if, until even the stars have started to look familiar. Rick watches him, the faint rise and fall of his chest, and exhales. A sound escapes his throat that could almost be a sigh or a wish. Outside the ship, the void folds and unfolds, each ripple birthing a new universe, each bubble a small, trembling dream. It's a sea of possibilities, glimmering like foam under moonlight. Every wave holds a world where Rick never left or Morty never followed. Every spark is a life unlived, and through it all the ship floats quietly, like a thought that refuses to end. Infinity, Rick once said, is not about how far something goes. It's about how deeply it can repeat. Pause. Imagine a song that never ends. Not because it keeps adding notes, but because each time it finishes, it finds another way to begin again. That's the multiverse, a melody that loops, not forward, but inward. Every universe a variation. Every variation a new question. Every question a faint echo of the same lonely curiosity. Rick had chased it once, believing that in the folds of infinity he could find something true. A law beneath all laws, the final formula. But the deeper he went, the more it began to look like himself. Reflected back in endless mirrors, each version of him slightly warped, slightly sadder, slightly more lost. That's the curse of infinity. You never meet the end. You only meet yourself. Again and again. The ship passes through another thin veil of reality. The stars bend. Colors melt and reform. There's a faint metallic taste in the air, like lightning about to strike. Morty stirs, half awake.
Are we there yet?
He murmurs. Rick doesn't answer. He looks out at the rolling cosmic tides, each wave tinted with memories. In one ripple he sees his daughter as a child. In another, a world where he never built the portal gun. He sees cities that never burned, people who never left, friends who never turned to ghosts. He sees the ghosts anyway, and yet,
even here, surrounded by endless versions of everything, there's still a kind of quiet.
A stillness heavy and soft like the air before snow. Perhaps that's what peace feels like in the multiverse. The moment between questions. The pause between universes. Pause. Somewhere far behind them, another Rick is doing the same. Or maybe he isn't. Maybe this Rick is dreaming them all, floating between his own possible selves like a leaf in a boundless river. And the river, endless as it is, doesn't flow forward. It flows inward into memory, regret, hope, and the gentle pulse of wonder. There's a quiet room in every version of the Citadel, a room no one talks about. A place Rick once designed long ago for himself. It's filled with mirrors, not to admire himself, but to map himself. Each reflection slightly off angle, each mirror tinted by a different truth. He'd stand there for hours, watching his infinite faces staring back.
One would smile, another would weep.
One would look defiant, another afraid. But beneath all their differences was the same question, one that no version of him could answer. If every possible Rick exists, then what is the point of being this one? As he once thought the question was tragic, but perhaps it's simply quiet, like a candle flickering in a room full of stars. He built the citadel to control it, to give order to the chaos of infinity. But you can't control a dream that dreams itself. You can only watch it unfold. So now, drifting alone with Morty asleep beside him, he feels closer to understanding. Maybe meaning was never hidden in equations or portals. Maybe it was always in the small pauses between them, the laughter that fades, the silence that follows. Rick glances at the boy beside him again. Morty's face twitches in sleep, chasing invisible adventures through some private dreamscape. There's something strange about sleep. It's the universe's kindest illusion. When we sleep, we forget which world we belong to. We drift through infinite ones, stitched together by imagination. For a few precious hours, every possibility becomes real, every loss undone, every ending rewritten. Perhaps that's why the universe dreams through us, because even infinity needs to rest. Rick adjusts the ship's controls. The hum softens. The stars outside blur into soft white streaks. He leans back, his eyes half closing. For the first time in a long while, he lets the silence hold him. He thinks of a question that Morty once asked him. If there are infinite versions of us, does it matter what we do? He never answered then. But in this moment, as sleep begins to weigh on his mind, he thinks he understands. Maybe it matters because this version feels it. Because this breath, this thought, this small moment of quiet exists nowhere else. And in an infinite cosmos, the rarest thing of all is a single, fleeting now pause. As Rick drifts into sleep, the universe bends again. The hum of the ship becomes a whisper of waves. The stars outside shift into glowing lanterns floating over an endless ocean. He's not sure if he's dreaming or remembering. The two feel the same. The sea is warm, thick with light. Each wave carries fragments of voices, laughter, tiny memories. He sees Morty walking across the surface, barefoot, eyes wide. He sees his younger self sitting on the water's edge, tinkering with a device that no longer exists. He sees infinite hymns, walking, falling, laughing, vanishing. They blur together until they're just light. And then all that remains is a feeling, gentle and formless, the sense that maybe, just maybe, he's never been alone. That every version of himself was simply the universe trying to understand what it means to be awake. And, in that understanding, to rest. The ship glides through the quiet dark. Two travelers asleep, the cosmos watching over them like an old dreamer. There are no answers tonight. No discoveries, no grand revelations. Only the hush of infinity breathing softly through the stars. Maybe that's enough. Maybe the purpose of all this wandering isn't to find the truth, but to fall asleep beside it and trust that somewhere, in some universe, it still waits to be found, or as the stars fold into morning, a faint light flickers on the horizon. Not from any sun, but from the mind itself, dreaming new worlds into being. The dream begins with light, thin, silver, endless. It trickles down from somewhere unseen, striking mirrored walls that stretch into eternity. You stand in a corridor of reflections where every angle shows another you. 1,000 versions of your face shimmer softly in the dark, like a constellation trying to remember its shape. Pause, the air hums faintly. It smells like dust and neon, sharp with the memory of static electricity. You can almost hear the echo of machinery far away, humming in unison, the quiet pulse of the citadel. But tonight it's empty, silent, every corridor glows, yet no footsteps follow, and there, at the center of this labyrinth of mirrors, stands a figure in a white coat, his hair lit like frost under the faint light. A flask dangles loosely from his fingers. His eyes are tired but curious, as though they've stared at too many versions of himself and found no difference worth keeping. This is the heart of the citadel, not the place of counsel or control, but the silent chamber that no Rick ever admits to visiting. It is the place where all the reflections meet. Rick takes a slow step forward, his boots echoing softly on glass. His reflection moves in 1,000 directions, each one slightly out of sync. He lifts a hand. They all lift theirs. He hesitates. Some don't. There's a strange beauty to it. This choir of selves, each echoing a slightly different thought. You can almost sense the vibrations between them, a shimmering network of possibility and contradiction. If you listen closely, you might hear their murmurs, not words but equations, the whisper of constants bending, shifting, the sound of genius looping back on itself forever. Each Rick here built the citadel in his own image. Each believed he was the first, and yet none of them truly understood what they were building. Not a fortress, not a city, but a mirror.
A living map of consciousness, endlessly folding upon itself, perhaps.
In some quiet corner of the cosmos, that's what all intelligence becomes, a mirror too complex to see through. Pause. He stops before a single pane of glass that gleams brighter than the rest. His reflection here looks older, wiser maybe, or just more afraid. They stare at one another for a long time, until the distinction between glass and flesh begins to blur. Then softly, the reflection speaks. "Why do you keep coming back here?" the reflection asks. Rick's voice trembles, not with fear, but with recognition. "Because I thought there'd be something different this time." "There never is," the reflection answers. "You built us to understand yourself."
But you forget, we are you.
"We understand everything you do. Nothing more,
Nothing less.
Rick chuckles under his breath. "Then maybe I just like the company." The reflection tilts its head. "You've built an empire of yourself, Rick. Infinite copies, infinite Ricks, all running from the same loneliness. Do you think that's company? Or just noise?" He doesn't answer. The silence stretches between them like glass. He can see his reflection's eyes flicker, not with judgment, but with quiet empathy, the kind that only the same soul could offer. "Maybe you came here," the reflection says, "to learn how to forgive yourself." Rick exhales slowly. The air fogs the mirror for a heartbeat. When it clears, his reflection is smiling, faintly, almost kindly, and then it's gone. Only the corridor remains, stretching outward like an unfinished thought. There's something about genius that feels like gravity. It pulls everything toward it, time, love, fear, until all that remains is the singular point of its own creation. Rick understood this long ago. He knew that brilliance can isolate as easily as it illuminates. Every discovery was another wall between him and the rest of the universe. Every portal opened a door that nothing familiar could follow him through us. He once believed that the citadel would change that by gathering infinite versions of himself, he could build a world immune to loneliness. But the irony was exquisite. He only multiplied it because genius cannot hide from its own reflection. It repeats itself endlessly, like light caught between two mirrors. Now as he walks deeper into the labyrinth, The reflections begin to move on their own. Each version of Rick begins to play out its own quiet scene, one laughing at a discovery, one arguing with a voice unseen, one sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, whispering equations like prayers. It feels almost holy in its own broken way, a cathedral built from thought, devotion, and the aching need to be understood. If you look closely, you'll see that the citadel isn't just made of glass and steel. It's made of memory. Each corridor aligns perfectly with another version of Rick's past. Every hallway a decision, every turn an alternate outcome. If you walk long enough, you could trace your way back through his entire life, across every universe. There's a room where he never left his wife, a room where he never had a daughter, a room where Morty never existed at all, and each is haunted by the faint sound of laughter, distant, echoing, uncertain.
Laughter that tries to mask the sound of longing. Rick moves through them quietly.
He doesn't touch the doors anymore. He knows what's behind them. The images still ache, even after countless versions of forgetting, because no matter how infinite he becomes, the feeling remains painfully finite. That's the paradox of being Rick. You can know everything and still not understand why you hurt. At the very center of the labyrinth, there's a chamber shaped like an eye. Its walls curve upward, smooth and transparent, catching the faint shimmer of passing universes. At its center floats a crystal, no larger than a heart, glowing with a dim, rhythmic light. This is the citadel's first creation, the prime core, the thing that binds every Rick to every other Rick, a silent heartbeat shared across infinity. He built it once to keep the multiverse in sync, but as he looks at it now, he realizes it does something else entirely. It reflects emotion. Each pulse corresponds not to time, but to thought. Every flicker is the echo of a feeling, pride, regret, fear, rippling across universes like sympathetic strings. He reaches out a hand toward it. The light brightens. The walls shimmer with new reflections, not of him, but of everyone he's ever met. Beth, Morty, Summer, Jerry, even those who never existed in this universe, all glimmering like ghosts made of memory. For the first time, Rick understands what he built, not a network of selves, but a mirror of every connection he ever lost. Every bond stretched thin across space and time. Pause. He lowers his hand slowly. The light fades, but the echo of warmth lingers, soft and persistent. The heartbeat of infinity, still alive inside him. Perhaps the labyrinth was never meant to be solved. Perhaps its walls exist to remind him that even in infinite possibility, the only real escape is acceptance. There is no version of Rick who gets it all right. No perfect path, no ultimate universe. There is only this. The awareness that behind every reflection lies a being trying to forgive his own reflection. Rick turns away from the crystal and begins to walk back. The corridors ripple as he moves. The mirrors grow dimmer, their light folding gently into shadow. Each step feels lighter than the last. Maybe because for once he's not searching for the exit. He's simply walking, allowing the labyrinth to exist as it is, beautiful, incomplete, and full of echoes. Outside, the citadel spins quietly in the void, its countless windows like stars reflected in still water. Inside, the corridors have gone silent again, waiting for another Rick to wander their halls. But this one, this version, steps out into the dark with something softer in his chest.
Not an answer, not peace exactly,
but a beginning. The faint hum of understanding. Maybe infinity isn't meant to be solved. Maybe it's meant to be felt. to be walked through slowly, like a dream that never quite ends. Pause. As the portal hums to life and the colors of another reality shimmer before him, Rick closes his eyes. He doesn't know where it leads this time, but he doesn't need to, because wherever it goes, he'll carry the reflection with him, the quiet knowledge that even in infinite versions, the truest self is always the one that chooses to look inward. And so the light folds again. Somewhere far from the citadel's mirrored corridors, there lies a city of lights that never sleep. It floats above a storm of color, pinks, violets, and the deep cerulean blue of forgotten time. Here, countless Mortys gather under 1,000 holographic suns, each one living out the same quiet wish in a slightly different way. Pause. If you listen, you can hear them. Their laughter rolls through the streets like soft thunder, awkward, nervous, endlessly human. A symphony of small lives trying to make sense of something vast. From above, the citadel calls them the balance. Each Morty, they say, exists to anchor a Rick, to remind the mind of infinity that it still has a heart. In one of those endless neighborhoods, row after row of identical apartments under the same pale glow, a boy sits on a rooftop, watching the stars flicker through the thin clouds of the upper atmosphere.
He doesn't know which universe he came from anymore.
The memory has blurred like chalk washed clean by rain. His name doesn't matter. All Mortys are Morty. All of them carry the same unease, the same yearning for something simple, something real. He pulls a crumpled photograph from his pocket. Two faces like him and Rick, caught mid-adventure, eyes bright, wind in their hair. The edges are burned, the colors faded, but the emotion remains, alive and unbroken. He looks up, whispers to the wind, "Are you still out there, Rick?"
Or am I just dreaming you again?
No one answers.
Only the hum of the citadel, keen the sound of machinery breathing, fills the space around him. Every Morty in this place has asked that same question.
Every one of them has wondered what they are without the man who made them matter. The Mortys were never meant to be extraordinary.
That was the point.
Rick, in his endless equations, discovered that genius required gravity, a pull toward something smaller, humbler, more human. The Mortys were that gravity, imperfect, fragile, anchored in emotion. He once called them constants in chaos. Each one a reminder that even gods of science need something soft to return to. And yet, in time, the paradox deepened, because the more Ricks relied on their Mortys, the less they understood them. And the more Mortys followed, the more they began to wonder whether they had ever been free. Pause. Freedom. It's a strange word in the Citadel. Here, identity is both infinite and meaningless. Because if there are countless versions of you, then what does it mean to choose? Still, Morty chooses to look up, to believe that somewhere his Rick still laughs at the edge of some impossible horizon. That somewhere the connection still matters. From the rooftop, he can see the rest of the Citadel's lower decks. Glowing bridges connecting towers like veins of light. Mortys walk in quiet patterns below, delivering food, trading stories, fixing small machines that hum with gentle warmth. Every now and then, one stops to gaze upward, as if they can sense the same ache, that cosmic loneliness that no amount of neon can drown. The air tastes faintly of ozone and smoke. The scent of metal mixed with cheap perfume drifts through the alleys. Above it all, screens flicker with messages from the council. A balanced citadel is a stable multiverse. Every Rick needs a Morty. But the Mortys here no longer repeat those lines with faith. They say them softly, the way you might hum an old lullaby whose words you no longer believe, but still find comfort in. pause. There's something poetic in their quiet defiance. The way they live, the way they love, the way they dream, even when no one's watching. Perhaps that's what makes them special. They don't need infinity to feel whole. They just need each other. Beneath the surface of the Citadel lies a secret, a web of hidden corridors known only to the Mortys who refuse to be assigned. They call it the underspace. It smells of rust and warmth, lit only by flickering wires and the glow of repurposed portal shards. Here, Mortys gather not as assistants, but as storytellers. They trade memories from lost universes, each tale passed from voice to voice like a sacred relic. Some stories end in laughter.
Some end in tears.
Some end in silence, when words are no longer enough. One story, whispered in the dim light, speaks of a Morty who found his Rick again. Not through science, but through dreaming. He claimed that if you sleep deeply enough, your mind can cross universes faster than any portal gun. That in the stillness between thoughts, you can hear your other selves calling. The others laugh softly.
But not because they don't believe.
They laugh because hope here feels dangerous, like staring too long into a star. There's an unspoken rule in the multiverse. For every Rick who rises, a Morty must hold the weight. They are the mirror halves of existence, intellect and emotion, chaos and care. One expands, the other grounds. One questions, the other remembers why questions matter. Rick once described it mathematically, as though it were another cosmic equation. R + C M, genius divided by mortality. But numbers can't describe the warmth of a hand reaching out. They can't explain the way Morty still calls his name in the dark, or the way that somehow the universe feels quieter when he does. Maybe that's the secret the Ricks never solved, that for all their portals and paradoxes, it's the simple, fragile heart of a Morty that keeps the infinite from falling apart. The lights of the Citadel dim, shifting from the bright white of industry to the gold haze of evening. From above, it looks almost peaceful, a constellation of glass and steel floating through an ocean of stars. Down below, the hum of voices grows softer. Mortys finish their shifts, fold their uniforms, close the doors on another repeating day. The boy on the rooftop still watches. The photograph lies beside him, fluttering gently in the recycled air. He feels the ache of distance, not measured in miles or universes, but in meaning. Every Rick he's ever known has tried to measure the world, to name it, to own it. But the Morty knows that not everything can be named. Some things can only be felt. He closes his eyes, and in the space between one breath and the next, the Citadel fades. He drifts into a dream made of fragments. Laughter, sparks of light, the taste of rain on a broken planet. Somewhere within that dream, a voice calls his name. It isn't loud.
It's gentle, almost shy.
"Hey, Morty! Wake up, buddy." He turns toward it and sees a familiar figure standing on a shore that glows like liquid amber. Rick. Or a memory of him, or a version too distant to tell apart. The air here smells like the sea, though there's no ocean, just an endless horizon of golden mist. Rick stands barefoot in the shallows, the cuffs of his lab coat wet, a half-smile trembling at the edge of his face. Morty takes a step closer. "You're real this time, right?" Rick shrugs. "Real enough for you to talk to me." They both laugh, and the sound ripples outward, the mist bending, turning into galaxies that spin and dissolve like bubbles. For a while, they just stand there. No portals, no machines, no equations. only two small shapes in an endless dream, held together by something neither can define. Rick finally says, "You know, kid,
All this stuff, the Citadel, the multiverse, it's just noise.
a way of making sense of something that doesn't want to be solved." Morty looks at him, eyes wide. "Then what's the point?" "The point," Rick says, "is that you asked." Pause. Morty feels the words sink in, slow and heavy. In that moment, he understands that curiosity, the willingness to ask even when the answer hurts, is what makes him alive. That maybe, all along, the Mortys weren't created to balance the Ricks. Maybe they were created to remind them how to wonder. When Morty wakes, the city is quiet. The photograph is gone. In its place lies a small, glowing shard, smooth as glass, humming faintly with warmth. He doesn't know how it got there, but he doesn't question it. He just holds it close, and for the first time in a long while, he feels seen. Down below, the underspace flickers with life again. Mortys gather in circles, trading dreams instead of data. They speak softly of the shore of light, of Ricks who smile, of universes where laughter still echoes after the fight. No one claims these stories are true, but everyone listens. Because sometimes belief itself is the most real thing a being can hold. Each retelling changes the dream a little. In one, Rick builds a world of clouds and teaches Morty to fly. In another, they rest beneath a cosmic tree, watching universes bloom like flowers. In every version, though, they find each other. And that, the Mortys decide, is the part that must be real. Pause. Perhaps the multiverse isn't infinite in size, but in tenderness. Each small act of remembering, each quiet choice to care, creates another version where love endures. There's a theory whispered among the older Mortys, the ones who've lived long enough to see universes collapse and rebuild, that the Mortys aren't separate at all, that somewhere beneath the machinery of reality, their minds are connected like roots beneath the soil, sharing every dream, every heartbeat, every flicker of hope. When one Morty laughs, another feels lighter. When one weeps, the others fall silent in empathy. Across infinity, they sustain one another without even knowing it. It's what keeps them from vanishing. It's what gives meaning to the chaos the Ricks created. Rick's genius may have scattered the stars, but Morty's quiet compassion keeps them warm. Pause. And maybe that's the truest form of balance. Not order over chaos, but heart beside mind.
Not control, but coexistence.
Not knowing, but feeling. Later, as the city cycles into its artificial night, Morty walks the empty bridges between towers. The lights reflect in his eyes like drifting constellations. For the first time, he doesn't feel small beneath them. He feels like part of the pattern. He leans on the rail, whispering into the wind, "Hey, Rick!"
I get it now.
We're not supposed to fix infinity. We're just supposed to live in it. The words vanish into the dark, carried away by the hum of distant engine. But somewhere, in a lab, in a dream, in another life, a version of Rick pauses mid-sentence, feeling an odd warmth bloom in his chest, like a heartbeat answering an echo. He doesn't know why. He just smiles faintly and keeps working. Because even across realities, connection finds its way. The citadel glows once more. Above it, the stars shimmer like tiny windows into other worlds, each one a fragment of a story still unfolding, still dreaming. Morty walks home under that cosmic glow. The shard in his hand pulses gently, matching the rhythm of his steps. And as he reaches his door, a thought comes to him, soft, certain, comforting. Maybe the weight of infinite Mortys isn't a burden at all. Maybe it's the quiet gravity that keeps the universe from drifting too far apart. He closes his eyes. The hum of the citadel fades to silence, and the dream begins again, this time lighter, brighter, full of endless small suns rising across the void. The story drifts into the silence that follows dawn. Not the kind of dawn that paints the sky with color, but the quiet turning of cosmic wheels, the slow reawakening of stars after long darkness. Here, in the deep corridors of eternity, time is not a straight line. It folds, hums, remembers, and somewhere within its spirals lives the cartographer of time, a Rick so ancient that even the Citadel's archives have forgotten his designation. He does not build portals anymore. He maps them. His dwelling is a suspended chamber that floats between realities, its floor made of polished obsidian, its walls alive with shifting constellations. Each constellation is a life he has traced, threads of cause and consequence stretching endlessly through the fabric of existence. Where other Ricks chase knowledge, this one listens to it. He believes that the universe speaks softly, in pulses and rhythms, and that time itself is a language made of memory. Pause each morning. If morning can even be said to exist here, the cartographer sits in silence before the loom of hours, a vast circular device made of light and glass. Within it, the patterns of time shimmer like water disturbed by thought. He touches the surface, and images ripple outward, a Morty laughing, a world collapsing, a portal blooming in green fire. He observes, but never interferes, not anymore. Once, long ago, this Rick had been young, bold, reckless, addicted to the thrill of invention. He tore open the laws of physics and stared into the heart of time itself. And in that luminous heart, he saw something that terrified him, not the chaos of the multiverse, but its order. Every possibility was already written, every choice branching from a predetermined rhythm. It wasn't freedom that filled infinity, but pattern. And pattern, he realized, is just another word for cage, so he began to map it, not to control it, but to understand the shape of the prison. For centuries, he wandered between eras, leaving pieces of himself across timelines like breadcrumbs. In one, he was a mentor.
In another, a ghost.
In most, he was forgotten, yet his maps grew. He charted loops of repeating destinies. Ricks who doomed themselves with their own brilliance, Mortys who rose and fell like waves, Beths who stared into mirrors and saw entire galaxies reflected in their eyes. He charted even the spaces between lives, the moments of silence, of waiting, of wonder. He called them the soft zones. And in those quiet spaces, he began to hear something that felt like mercy. Because one day, or whatever word describes a pause in eternity, the cartographer receives a visitor. The air trembles. A portal sighs open, spilling pale light across the room. From it steps a young Morty, eyes wide with the kind of fear that only innocence can feel. He stammers, "Are you the one they call the cartographer?" Rick doesn't look up. Depends who's asking. The others said you can show people where they belong. Rick chuckles, a sound halfway between sadness and amusement. "Belonging's not on any of my maps, kid." Morty hesitates. His voice wavers like a candle. "I lost my Rick." Those words settle heavy in the air. Rick finally turns. His eyes are pale, not from age, but from too much seeing. "Everyone loses their Rick," he says softly. "That's how time keeps moving." The boy doesn't understand, but he nods anyway. Rick gestures toward the loom. "Come here, look." Morty approaches. Inside the swirling light, he sees infinite moments overlapping. Every version of himself spread across eternity, laughing, crying, running, waiting. "It's all you," Rick says. "Every possibility, every heartbeat, every mistake," Morty whispers. Then, "Which one is real?" "All of them," Rick answers. "Or none. Depends on whether you're asking as a scientist or as a dreamer." Pause. The boy frowns. "What about you? Where are you on the map?" Rick smiles faintly. "I stopped putting myself on there a long time ago." They stand together for a while, watching time unfold in silence. The loom's light reflects off their faces, two small shapes against an infinite sea. Finally, Morty asks, "Doesn't it get lonely, knowing everything?" Rick exhales slowly. "Knowledge doesn't make you lonely, Morty. It just makes you quiet." He pauses, his voice dropping lower. "What makes you lonely is realizing that time remembers every version of you, but you only get to live one." Morty doesn't respond. "The truth is too big to hold," Rick continues, softer now. "The trick isn't escaping the timeline, Morty. It's learning to love your fragment of it. To live it as if it's the only one that ever mattered." He reaches out and touches the loom again. The images ripple, shifting from chaos into something almost serene. A boy laughing under a starlit sky, a hand reaching back to guide him, a green spark fading into peace. "See that?" Rick whispers. "That's a good moment. Doesn't need to last forever. Just needs to happen once." Pause. The citadel drifts quietly now, a distant, glittering shape suspended in the ink of infinity. Once it was alive with motion and noise, the laughter of countless Ricks, the chatter of restless Mortys, the metallic hum of invention echoing through its hollow arteries. Now it feels more like a memory than a place. The corridors breathe in echoes, the walls remember footsteps that no longer pass through them. Inside, dust settles like snow upon forgotten blueprints and cracked portal guns. The citadel, in its stillness, has begun to dream. Pause. The dream begins with light, faint and amber, like the last flicker of a dying star. It leaks through the broken glass dome at the center of the citadel, falling in slow waves over what was once a council chamber. The long table of Rick stands abandoned, its surface scarred by centuries of argument. But in the center of the table, a single object remains, a small cube, transparent and alive with inner motion. It is said to contain the heart of the citadel, the last working fragment of its ancient core. And though no one is here to hear it, the cube hums gently, like a heartbeat. Long before the citadel became a monument to ego, it was born from fear. When the first Ricks discovered the infinite multiverse, they were overwhelmed by the realization of their own smallness. They built the citadel to hide from it, a sanctuary
of sameness, a place where every Rick could look into a mirror and see himself reflected 1,000-fold.
At first, it was beautiful. Imagine it, towers of glass and metal spiraling upward into the void, each window a laboratory, each corridor an echo of another. Infinite intellect condensed into a single, shining city. But brilliance without humility becomes its own form of blindness. The Ricks began to believe they had mastered not just science, but meaning itself. They called themselves gods of probability. They reduced existence to numbers, equations, loops. And in doing so, they began to lose something vital, something that had once made them human. That something was compassion. Pause. So the citadel's heart was built to remember what they had forgotten. It was a fail-safe designed to preserve emotion, the raw, irrational spark that could not be quantified or replicated. It pulsed at the center of their creation, a living reminder that intelligence without empathy is only machinery. But over time, the Ricks forgot why they made it. They buried the heart beneath layers of code and circuitry, dismissing it as an obsolete relic. They built their city higher, colder, brighter, until even the memory of feeling seemed like a glitch in their perfection. Now, with the citadel empty, the heart begins to stir. It beats once, then again. Each pulse sends a ripple through the air, reawakening fragments of old data. Voices, laughter, arguments, songs. Holograms flicker to life. Ghosts of Ricks, long gone walking their old paths, unaware they are only echoes. In one corner, a spectral Rick leans against a wall, muttering equations under his breath. In another, a Morty hologram runs after him, carrying a stack of notes. Their words blur together, but the feeling remains. The hum of curiosity, the ache of companionship. The heart feels these echoes and through them begins to dream of warmth. It dreams of the first Rick, who looked at a Morty not as an assistant, but as a reflection of his own innocence. It dreams of shared laughter in dark laboratories, of the way curiosity once felt like hope instead of hunger. And slowly, the citadel begins to remember what it means to care. Pause. Far away, in a quiet corner of the multiverse, one surviving Rick hears a whisper through his portal receiver. It is faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Curious, he follows it. He steps through dimension after dimension, crossing ruined worlds and silent skies until the citadel rises before him like a ghost made of light. Its towers glow faintly, breathing in time with the pulse he feels in his chest. Inside, he finds the heart. It floats above the old council table, spinning slowly, its glow soft and golden. Rick stares at it for a long time. His face, lined with years and regret, softens. "You're still running?" he murmurs. After all this time, the heart responds not in words but in sensation. A warmth spreading through the air, touching his skin, his memories. He sees flashes, the laughter of Mortys, the camaraderie of invention, the quiet moments of joy that once hid between chaos. He feels, for the first time in years, a kind of peace. He kneels before it, not as a scientist, but as a witness. "I get it now," he whispers. "You weren't a power source. You were a reminder." Pause. He places his hand against the cube. Light blooms outward, filling the chamber. For a brief, timeless instant, every version of Rick across infinity feels something shift. A subtle warmth in the center of their endless cold. A thought passes between them, unspoken but shared. We are not just the minds that think. We are the hearts that remember. The pilgrim. Rick leaves the citadel in silence. Behind him, the heart continues to beat. Slow, patient, eternal. Its light reaches out across dimensions, stitching faint threads of empathy into the fabric of existence. Somewhere, a Rick laughs a little softer. A Morty feels a little braver. A universe that was collapsing begins gently to heal. Pause. The citadel will never again be what it was, and perhaps that is mercy. In its emptiness, it has become something more sacred, a monument to the truth that even the coldest mind carries a spark of warmth waiting to be remembered. And as the stars shift outside its broken glass dome, the heart hums quietly to itself, as if singing a lullaby to all of creation. The citadel dreams on, wars. There is a wind that moves between worlds. It does not howl or rush. It drifts, a soft silver breath sliding through cracks in time, carrying whispers of all that was and all that could be. Some call it the void stream. Others call it the dream current. But the Ricks who have felt it pass through their laboratories, flickering the portal glass like candlelight, know it by another name. The breath between realities. A pause. It is said that when one falls deeply asleep beyond even the pull of REM, one might drift close enough to feel it. A current that connects dream to dream, mind to mind, possibility to possibility. Rick once theorized that the multiverse itself might be dreaming, that every universe was a thought floating in the mind of something greater, and that portals were not tools of travel, but brief awakenings within the dream. He never proved it, but sometimes, after too many nights of work and whiskey, he would lean back in his chair, stare into the green shimmer of a portal, and whisper to himself, "Maybe this isn't science at all. Maybe it's sleepwalking." And perhaps he was right. In the space between one dream and another lies a sea of lightless mist. No planets, no stars, only drifting fragments of thought, echoes of universes dissolving at the edge of imagination. Some fragments are bright and eager, the newborn remnants of a Morty's dream about adventure. Others are old and slow, the fading sighs of worlds that forgot to keep believing in themselves. This is the interdream, where consciousness folds inward. And somewhere within it, a portal shivers open. From its glowing frame steps a lone figure. Rick, or some softened echo of him. His coat floats behind him like a memory refusing to fade. In one hand, he holds not a portal gun, but a glowing crystal shaped like an eye. "Still here," he mutters. "Still falling." The mist responds with a sigh. It sounds almost like words. The voice is everywhere, low, resonant, and filled with warmth. It says, "You are between dreams, traveler. Why do you wake here?" Rick glances around, a smirk half forming on his lips. "Guess I took a wrong turn at unconsciousness." The voice hums, amused. "There are no wrong turns here?"
Only places where memory gets tired. He frowns. "And you are?"
"The dream between worlds," it answers. "The breath that carries you from one version of yourself to the next." Rick chuckles softly. "Figures. Even my dreams sound like philosophy professors, but beneath his sarcasm there is something else. Wonder. Because in this place, the laws he built his life around are soft as smoke. Cause and effect dissolve into feeling.
Logic bends gently toward meaning. The dream continues. You have built doors between every world but your own mind. Tell me, Rick, what are you running from? Pause. He doesn't answer.
Instead, he walks forward. Each step ripples through the mist, and scenes bloom around him. Moments from 1,000 lifetimes.
A young Morty laughing at a bad joke.
A Beth watching her father disappear. A portal shimmering like a heartbeat. Each image flickers, fades, reforms. Rick whispers, "These are dreams?" "These are your reflections," the dream replies. "Every reality is a memory that refused to die." Ahead, the mist thins. In the distance stands a mirror, enormous, translucent, pulsing faintly like living glass. Rick approaches. Within its depths, he sees himself multiplied infinitely, each reflection moving slightly out of sync. Some versions smile.
Others look away.
He raises his hand. They raise theirs. The dream speaks again. You spend your life building portals to escape, but every doorway you open only leads to another you. Tell me, what do you seek on the other side? Rick stares at his reflection. For the first time, he has no answer. The silence between them stretches until it becomes soft, almost holy. Then the dream murmurs. Every traveler must pass through the portal of self before they can rest. The mirror begins to shimmer, its surface melting into ripples of emerald light. Rick hesitates.
And what happens if I step through?
You stop running. He takes a deep breath, one that feels heavy, like an entire lifetime exhaling. Then he steps forward. Pause. The world shifts. The light grows warmer, like the golden hue before sunrise. The air smells faintly of ozone and rain. Rick stands in a field beneath an infinite sky. The grass hums gently beneath his boots. In the distance, countless portals hang like floating lanterns, each leading to a world he once touched. He turns slowly, and for the first time in eternity, he sees himself not as a genius or a fugitive or a god of portals, but as a man simply awake in his own dream. From the grass, faint shapes begin to rise, silhouettes of Mortys, Beth's Summers, and countless strangers. Not solid, but luminous, like memories given form. They move past him in silence, returning through the portals, dissolving back into their worlds. Rick watches, his expression soft. Guess that's where I belong, huh? The dream answers, belonging is not a place, Rick. It is the moment when you stop dividing yourself. He smiles faintly.
Never was good at that. Then rest, the dream whispers.
Let the universe dream for you for a while. Pause. Rick sits down in the grass. Above him, the portals begin to close one by one, their light fading into stars. The last one remains open, a small, round frame glowing with the same color as his portal gun. He watches it for a moment, then lies back, hands folded beneath his head. The stars pulse softly. The air hums, and for the first time in his long, restless life, Rick Sanchez begins to fall asleep. The dream lingers, its voice growing quieter, softer, until it sounds like wind in tall grass. All portals lead to this place eventually, not of space, but of peace. You are not lost, Rick. You are merely resting between dreams. The field shimmers, dissolving into endless light. Somewhere, faintly, a heartbeat echoes. Not mechanical, not cosmic, but human. The rhythm of sleep, the rhythm of becoming whole again. Pause. The light fades. Only the sound remains. Soft, slow, eternal. There is a soft place in the multiverse, a field woven from starlight and forgotten laughter. The grass there glows faintly blue, humming in rhythm with distant galaxies. Above it no sun rises and no moon falls. Only a quiet light breathes in endless dusk. It is here that Morty wakes. He opens his eyes slowly, not with alarm, but with the gentle confusion of someone emerging from a long, kind dream. The air smells like rain and ozone, the same scent that lingers after a portal closes. Somewhere far away, thunder sighs like a sleeping giant. Morty sits up. His reflection shimmers faintly across the dew-dotted blades. He doesn't remember falling asleep. He doesn't remember what came before. All he knows is that he is here, in a field that feels both real and imagined oars. He calls out once, softly.
Rick, no answer. Only the wind curling through the grass like a memory. He tries again, louder this time.
Rick, you out there? Still nothing. The silence feels alive, almost listening, a rustle, a whisper. The grass moves in slow ripples. Then from nowhere and everywhere at once, a voice speaks, quiet, patient, as though it had been waiting for him. "You are safe here, little traveler," Morty startles.
What? Who's there? Only the field. Only the dream. He blinks.
The dream? Yes, you've been walking through it for a long time.
Now it walks through you. Morty frowns, looking around. Okay, yeah, that sounds weirdly Rickish. Did he send you? Am I like stuck in some brain experiment again?
The voice seems to smile. Perhaps. Or perhaps you're just resting after too much reality. Cause Morty lets out a shaky laugh. Yeah, that sounds about right. He looks around again, really looking this time. The grass isn't just grass. It's made of tiny strands of light, each pulsing gently, like neurons firing in slow motion. In the distance, something glimmers, a great lake made of mirrored time. Its surface reflects not the sky above, but the memories of everyone who has ever dreamt. Morty whispers, "Is this what's inside Rick's head?" No, the field replies, "It's what lies beneath it." He walks toward the lake, each step dissolving into ripples of sound. Faint laughter, fragments of words, the echo of portal energy. When he reaches the edge, he kneels. The surface moves like glass, stirred by thought. He looks down. Beneath the surface, he sees himself. Not one, but hundreds, thousands of Mortys, layered over each other like the rings of a tree. Some are older, some younger, some smiling, others trembling, all looking up at him with the same quiet question in their eyes. Who am I this time? Morty's breath catches. He reaches out and the water trembles. The voice of the field murmurs, "Every Morty is a dream the multiverse has about innocence. Some wake, some don't. You, perhaps, are one who has begun to remember. Remember what? That even the smallest kindness ripples forever." Pause, the surface shifts again. Morty sees himself helping Rick up after an explosion, hugging Summer after a loss, offering Beth a quiet smile when she feels unseen. Moments so small they never mattered in the eyes of gods or scientists. But here, they shine brighter than stars. He whispers, "They all happened. They all mattered." Morty stares at the reflections, his chest tight. For once there is no cynicism, no irony, only awe. The voice softens, becoming almost maternal.
Do you know why Ricks need Mortys?
Morty shakes his head. To balance brainwaves? To hide from detection or something? No, the voice says gently. Because without innocence, genius forgets why it began dreaming. Morty blinks, unsure how to respond.
That sounds
kind of poetic for a field. Every world has a child at its heart, it continues. Something small and wondering that keeps the machinery of stars from rusting. You are that wonder, Morty. You always have been. He looks away, embarrassed.
Come on, I'm not special. I mess everything up. I'm scared half the time.
Rick does all the big stuff, and yet you stay, the voice whispers.
You stay even when the sky breaks, even when you don't understand.
That is courage. That is the seed of every universe that heals instead of burns. Past as a breeze passes, the field glows brighter, as if touched by unseen hands. Morty feels warmth rise through him. Not pride, exactly, but acceptance. The simple peace of realizing that maybe being small doesn't mean being unimportant. A faint hum begins behind him. The air ripples, folding inward like silk. Morty turns. A portal opens. Slow, elegant, glowing not the usual green, but a soft gold. Through it steps Rick. He looks older, quieter, but his eyes hold no exhaustion now, only calm. "Morty," he says. "Rick?" Morty's voice cracks. "Where the heck are we?" Rick looks around. "In between."
In a dream. In whatever this is. He pauses, smirks faintly. Pretty nice, though. Morty stands frozen for a moment, then blurts, "You disappeared, man." I thought, I don't even know what I thought. Rick raises a hand as if brushing off the words, but his eyes soften.
Hey, relax, kid. Nobody disappears in dreams. We just spread out a little. Pause. They stand together at the edge of the lake. Their reflections, thousands of versions of them, shimmer beneath the surface, blending slowly into one another until only two remain. Rick puts a hand on Morty's shoulder. See that, Morty?
That's us.
All the mess, all the pain, all the dumb jokes. It's all the same story.
Just told a million ways. Morty looks down.
So which one's real? Rick smiles, faintly tired, faintly kind, whichever one you choose to believe before you wake up. The light begins to fade around them. The lake's ripples still. The stars above pulse in rhythm with their breathing. Morty looks at his reflection one last time.
Rick, when I wake up,
Will I remember any of this? Rick shrugs softly. Maybe, maybe not. But you'll feel it.
That's what matters. Morty nods.
Then I guess that's enough. They sit together as the field begins to dissolve into starlight, the dream folding back into the quiet hum of infinity. The voice of the field whispers one final time. The child and the wanderer are one.
Sleep now.
The multiverse remembers you both, or as the sound fades. The grass becomes mist. The mist becomes breath. And in that breath, the story continues. Somewhere beyond the boundaries of any charted dimension, there stands a library that does not belong to time. Its halls drift in a soft suspension, a realm of quiet breathing dust and golden luminescence. Each corridor seems to pulse with the rhythm of dreams, as if the entire structure is alive, inhaling and exhaling memory itself. The shelves rise like ancient trees, their roots buried in starlight, their branches spreading across a sky of glass. Pause. Rick and Morty step lightly through the drifting corridors. Their footsteps make no sound, and yet beneath each step, ripples of light travel outward, illuminating old titles written in languages that have long forgotten how to speak themselves. Morty's eyes widen.
Where are we, Rick?
He whispers, though his voice feels almost swallowed by the air, as if sound were too heavy for this place. Rick runs a hand along a shelf. The tomes hum beneath his touch. "The Library of Forgotten Realities," he murmurs. "Every reality that once existed, or almost did. Every version of us that dreamed, suffered, or simply blinked out before it mattered. They're all archived here, in the language of entropy." He plucks a single book from the shelf. It's not really a book, or more like a translucent cube that hums softly, glowing with faint galaxies inside. When Rick opens it, sound pours out. Laughter, thunder, the echo of someone crying, the whisper of wind through grass. For a moment, Morty sees it. An entire timeline unfolding in miniature, a version of Earth where nobody invented writing, where humanity lived only through music and smell. Then the cube closes and the sound dies. Pause. Rick smiles faintly. Every choice that was forgotten, every reality that ended before it began. They're all here, Morty, stored by something that likes to remember what the universe itself forgets. They move deeper into the halls. The air grows thicker with light. Dust motes shimmer like stars. A faint scent of ozone and parchment lingers. Some shelves contain not books but jars filled with liquid starlight. Inside, faces flicker for an instant, then fade away. Morty feels the pull of them, the strange intimacy of knowing each jar once held a universe complete with laughter, rain, and grief.
Who keeps all this?
He asks softly. Rick shrugs. No one knows. Maybe the universe keeps a diary, Or maybe it's guilt. He stops before a massive doorway, its surface carved with spirals that shift when you're not looking. Inside, the space opens into a circular chamber. At the center, a slow-turning planet of light hovers, a globe made of glass, filled with drifting pages. The pages turn themselves in silence, and each carries the echo of an entire life. Rick reaches toward one of them, and the page flutters open.
On it, Morty sees himself, or something like him, standing in a sunlit field beside a woman with dark hair, laughing.
Then the page turns, and she vanishes. Pause. Hey, Rick, what happens to the worlds that get forgotten?
They don't die, Rick says quietly. They just
stop being observed. Without attention, reality curls inward, like paper touched by flame. What remains are impressions, a texture, a rhythm, a scent. The library collects those. What's forgotten by consciousness gets remembered by silence. Morty looks around at the endless corridors. The idea frightens him in a gentle way, like realizing how small a candle flame is beside the night sky. Does that mean we could be forgotten too? Rick glances at him, a sad half-smile crossing his face. We already have been somewhere, but that's fine.
Oblivion's not an insult.
It's the universe making room for what comes next. They walk again, passing sections labeled with strange symbols. Spirals for laughter, triangles for civilizations that never invented mirrors. At one point, Morty notices a section glowing with blue light, labeled simply Unfinished Stories. He pauses before it, and Rick follows his gaze. Those are timelines that almost made sense, Rick says. Worlds that were one thought away from understanding themselves. Every consciousness has one. The story it meant to tell, but never could. Morty reaches out to touch one of the glowing spines. The instant he does, an image floods his mind. Himself, older, wiser, standing on a mountain overlooking a world that finally understood kindness. But then the image fades, replaced by the ache of something that could have been. Rick places a gentle hand on his shoulder. Don't be sad, Morty. The beauty of potential isn't that it's realized, it's that it exists at all. Pause. The silence here feels heavier, yet strangely comforting. A weighted blanket of stillness. In every direction, forgotten stories breathe faintly as if grateful to be remembered even by strangers. Morty looks up at the swirling stars above the shelves. Do you ever wonder if the universe remembers us, Rick?
Like when we're gone, will we be just another book here?
Rick chuckles softly.
Maybe, but I don't think the point is to be remembered.
The point is to leave an echo that hums in the right frequency, one that makes the silence sound a little less alone. They pause by a reading table carved from petrified light. Rick opens another volume. This one hums differently, lower, deeper. Inside, Morty sees a version of Rick who never built a portal gun. A man who stayed home, grew old, watched the sun rise with his daughter every day. There is no invention, no adventure, only peace. Morty whispers, "Do you ever think that version of you is happier?" Rick's voice drops to a murmur. Maybe. Or maybe happiness isn't about escaping the pain, it's about recognizing it as part of the pattern. Every reality has its own rhythm of suffering and joy. You can't subtract one without changing the music. He closes the book gently and looks up. The library isn't a warning, Morty. It's a lullaby, a reminder that even forgotten songs still exist somewhere, humming to themselves. Pause. They sit quietly for a long while, listening to the hum. The sound is deep, cosmic, like the breathing of the multiverse itself. It feels neither sad nor joyful, just infinitely patient. Morty leans back, letting his eyes drift shut. He imagines each forgotten world as a spark, each spark whispering its own little truth. We were here. We dreamed. For the first time, he understands that maybe existence isn't about permanence. Maybe it's about participation, being part of a story, even briefly, before the next one begins. Rick eventually stands, brushing imaginary dust from his coat.
Come on, kid.
The library goes on forever, and I don't intend to read it all? Morty hesitates. But what if there's one in here that's still alive? Rick looks back toward the infinite aisles, eyes glimmering. Then maybe it's reading us. They walk toward the exit. The doorway sighs open, releasing them into a corridor filled with floating lights. As they move, the shelves behind them shift, closing softly, sealing their passage with quiet grace. Somewhere, the forgotten worlds murmur their thanks. As the door fades away, the library returns to silence. Only the faint hum remains, like a heartbeat beneath creation. Pause. Outside, they find themselves once again in the vast emptiness between universes. The stars stretch endlessly, each one perhaps a footnote in that infinite archive. Morty gazes outward, his mind still echoing with the songs of lost worlds. "Rick," he says softly, "if every forgotten world still hums somewhere, does that mean nothing ever truly disappears?" Rick exhales, the faintest smile in his voice. "Exactly, Morty. Nothing's ever lost, it just changes key." The air around them ripples, reality shifting like silk. For a moment, the cosmic library seems to appear again in the distance, shimmering like a mirage before fading back into the dark. Rick turns away.
Come on, Morty, we've got one more place to see before the silence takes its nap. And as they drift onward,
the echo of the library of forgotten realities follows. Not loud, not haunting, but soft and patient, like a memory that refuses to die. Pause. From here, the story turns toward what lies beyond remembering, toward a truth that doesn't need to be written to exist. And so begins the next chapter.